Well, welcome back. We're live again here on Facebook and YouTube with another amazing guest for Hormones and Health Summit. You know that we're talking about hormonal balance. We're talking about everything that supports and nurtures our hormones, which also is, like you already know, probably from watching those interviews, healthy gut, healthy metabolism. So we have an ideal, perfect guest to speak about it today. And let me introduce you to Dr. Lisa Sulsenti. So I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about her. And Dr. Sulsenti is a Christian chiropractor, nutritionist, author, and leaky gut expert. She owns Atlantic Coast Chiropractic in Brick, New Jersey. Over the past 20 years, she has adjusted and coached patients with various health problems such as heart disease, high blood pressure, digestive problems, thyroid, and hormonal imbalances, as well as fibromyalgia, allergies, back and joint pain, headaches. And also, Dr. Lisa specializes in autism spectrum disorders and weight gain. So, Dr. Lisa is the creator of drlisasulsenti.com, author of the Over-Tilted Child, creating a sensational classroom for kids with autism spectrum disorders, sensory processing disorders, and ADHD, an upcoming book, The Kind Kitchen, and owner of her one-on-one and DIY, The Kind Gut programs. Incredibly, she is co-owner of The Kind Body, an incredible organic skincare company. To her, health matters and you matter. I absolutely love this. Let's welcome Dr. Lisa Sulsenti. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. So nice to meet you. And by the way, we are live, so I see that you're watching. So if anybody wants to drop in questions, drop them in the comments, and I'm sure we can include them as well. So, welcome, Dr. Lisa. Well, I just love your mission and what you say. Yes, health matters, and
Yep.
everybody here, all our viewers matter. And this is why we're here for. So, we are going to delve into gut health, leaky gut, and how this actually supports or not our hormonal balance. So let's, because you are so, you create so much for your patients and for people out there. Let's start with your own story. How do you get inspired on your path?
Oh, that's I love that part.
Yeah.
So I my story is interesting. I started off as a nutritionist, an undergraduate, and got my degree there. So I started off in nutrition, and then I went off to chiropractic school. And the reason I did that was I got injured, and as they were fixing my neck, I realized my allergies were never really they were clearing up, and I was really never getting them again. I was typically getting those seasonal sinus infections, bronchitis, whole thing. And then as I was getting my neck fixed, I realized there's something more here. And I was young, and I just asked the doctor, like, or chiropractor, like, could it be connected? And he was like so excited, sat down, explained the nervous system to me and how the life force in our body flows from the above down, inside out, and how our organs depend upon our nervous system. So I was like, oh, this is great. I was pre-med, and I was like, well, I really want to really do this. Is easier than getting shots.
Yes.
So I went down the chiropractic path, and I have to say that I learned a ton more nutrition, because my nutrition that I learned was typically medicinal and a lot of like hospital stuff and things like that. So the chiropractic path took me on a more organic approach to nutrition. And so that's kind of what happened. And then I became a chiropractor. But then I became a mom. And as you know, when you become a mom, your whole life changes. And so I have three boys, and they're older now, 18, 22, 24. But when they were little, my middle guy went off to school and just couldn't complete a day. And to summarize it, so I don't go through the whole story in this live, it got so bad that, I was picking him up by 11 o'clock. He'd be in the corner going like this, or, like this. And so I just got like thrown into this world of sensory processing disorders, autism spectrum. He's 22 now. So at this time, no one even really used these words. And And I was going to these educators like, what do we do? And they're like, I don't know. What do you want us to do? And I was like, well, you got the master's degrees in education. Like, what do you mean? And he couldn't really handle the large classroom, the noises, all that stuff. So I have to get my CEUs and I have my nutrition degree. So in my state of New Jersey, I started seeing leaky gut seminars and I was like, what's that? So, and I started hearing somehow if a child has wheat or red dye, they cannot behave, they might not focus, right? So, long story made short, that's my path I went down to help him. And as he was overcoming some severe things, and then other mothers were all coming to me, which is why I wrote the book, because I couldn't repeat the story and what to do and how to implement, how to write an IEP and all that stuff. That's what the book's about. It's really the journey of how to create the sensational classroom that fits your kids' needs. But the whole component really came down to your gut and nutrition, right? So I was like, okay, this makes sense. And so as we were helping Luke, of course, I started using it for myself because I was having irritable bowel, but I was just living with it. You tend to start living with things; they become your normal because you just don't know what else to do. So I one day just sat down and said, what if I brought this to my practice? Because he's doing really well. I'm doing really well. I don't know. Maybe there's something here. I literally brought it to my practice without thinking I was going to be able to help as many people as we did. And again, this was, maybe 14 years ago, and then it was 10 years ago. So as I'm in this, process, the gut is exploding in information and research. I create the leaky gut diet and it's helping thyroids, hormones, polycystic ovary syndrome, like all these autoimmune, all these conditions. So we were starting to learn together as a community. And it's a lot of chiropractors, but then it's also a lot of, let's say, functional medical practitioners, naturopaths, like the naturopathic side of medicine. We're all coming together and we're like, wow, there's a gut body connection. It's not just the brain, it's also inflammatory throughout the whole body. And so I just brought it to my practice and it just started exploding. And then in the last 4 years or 5 years, the testing came, which is now we can test for causes and which we'll get into, but that's what brought me today. And so you kind of sometimes just stumble upon your own story, like your story, stumble upon your own expertise as you move forward through life. So today I have an amazing program that is just helping hundreds and hundreds of people, and it gets better and better as technology gets better. So that's my story.
Wow. Amazing, fascinating, and thank you for sharing that story. It's really profound, and I think, like you say, I mean, a lot of health practitioners come from that personal story, and that's how we get inspired. And helping our children, helping our families, helping ourselves. This is the pathway because you've tested it yourself. So
right.
It is tested and proven. And so let's delve in. Okay, leaky gut. And there's so much connection because, obviously on this summit, we're talking about hormones, but we also are talking about mental health in terms of, focusing, brain fog, lack of, mental focus and mental energy. So I would love to start with the basics and talk about what is leaky gut and how do we define it?
Okay. So before I begin, I like people to understand that when we talk about the gut, we're talking about looking at the body as a whole versus looking at one system. So it's a little complicated sometimes in some people's minds because we've been raised to think about one system, right? If you have a headache, you take this pill. If you have a thyroid problem, you take this pill. So, but we're looking at it as a whole thing. So the gut, when I have a patient that sits in front of me, this is really important too. Each person's different. So it's not cookbook. And what I tend to do, no matter what they have, is I'm going to go right into gut and I want to see if they have a leaky gut. And what a leaky gut is you get down to the mucosal lining, the lining of the gut, to keep it simple. There's the lining of the gut. If there's any gut damage there, that's the most important thing. It's about gut wall damage. If there's damage in the wall of the gut, the lining of the gut, that's where the inflammation in the gut can actually leak out. That's where we could have this systemic type of system thing that happens that affects other organs. The way it happens is right now we are understanding there's about 80% of our immune system is our gut, which is why gut health is super important to all all illnesses, like being healthy. But it's when your body is actually from that cellular lining attacking proteins in foods. And yours could be different from mine. That's what I need people to understand, is that it's not this cookbook thing. Your body might be attacking bananas, let's say, and mine might be attacking like chicken. So when the body attacks these proteins, it is an immune system attack. You do get antibodies made. You do have inflammatory particles given off. And that's the key, is when these cytokines are they're released, they create inflammation. They damage the gut wall. They'll start attacking the gut wall. I tell people to think of them as little Pac-Men, and just like, your body's attacking these things, and then these little Pac-Men are given off, and they kind of chomp away at the gut wall. We now, through lab work, can actually know what foods your body's attacking, and we also can see how much damage you have in your gut wall. So it's almost like, do you have a leaky gut? That's what the leaky gut is. When you have the gut wall damage, things start permeating out of the gut. They start crossing that gut blood barrier that shouldn't. Like food shouldn't leak out, protein shouldn't leak out, bacteria shouldn't leak out. So that's what a leaky gut really is just this inflammatory gut wall damage where things start sifting and permeating out. You can still have it within, but you might just have digestive issues. But when these cytokines start damaging the gut wall, they can go to the thyroid, they can go to the ovaries, they can go to the joints, they can go to the muscles, they can affect the brain. So that's that gut body connection. And that's one way. There's other ways that the gut can affect the body, but that's the main answer to what a leaky gut is, and as simple as I can explain it,
Perfect. Yeah, and I would love to get back into how the gut, affects the body in other ways. But let's kind of still keep with the basics. So how do we get leaky gut? Because to my understanding, it is a pretty big epidemic right now, especially in our, in the United States, in the Western world, and probably everywhere.
It's super interesting. From what I like people to understand is, I understand there's research, and there is research in leaky gut, but I'm the type of person that I really love sharing what I clinically see in my practice. So that's what I'm sharing with you. And some of the main cause of leaky gut is food. But the interesting part is the American food I'm seeing is quite different from like European foods. For example, when I have somebody that has severe colitis with me, and they are, wearing Depends or diapers because they can't go anywhere and their life is ruined, and they do my program and they work with me and they overcome it, then they go off to like their bucket list trip, right? So you could go to Italy, Greece, Jerusalem, any of those places, France, and they're like, I'm having bread, I don't care. They go out there and they're fine, and they come back thinking they're cured, and then they come back and try the American bread, and all of a sudden it's back, if that's their issue. So one of the main cause of leaky gut, the number one cause, is food. And I do believe that in the American food, if you start researching it, is super processed. A lot of it's man-made. The Americans, we don't have the best diets. We might think we do, but we don't. And you can eat super healthy and still attack something healthy like blueberries. We have genetically modified foods, sprayed foods. It's food. That's the main cause. The second cause is stress, which again, that's a whole nother component that we could talk about. But food is really the main thing, and that's what we test for. They're called food sensitivities or food triggers.
So what I'm hearing is mostly, it's not necessarily just the food, like whether I'm eating gluten or not, but it's the processed quality of food, or unnatural, if it's GMO, or if it's contaminated, if it's overly processed. Is that correct?
Yes. It's definitely the processed foods, the altered foods. And wheat is one of the most altered things. Dairy is one of the most altered things. So, when people say, oh, food allergies, a lot of it is the food's been so changed. So the best thing to do to find out what your food sensitivities are is to have we now have, the old day was like doing an elimination diet where you tried to, not eat anything and then add a food in and see if you have a reaction. But with food sensitivities, the problem with it is if you eat something on a Sunday, you could have a reaction like on a Wednesday. So you don't really know what it is you ate between Sunday and Wednesday that caused it. We tend to think the thing that we just ate that landed us into the bathroom caused it. but sometimes it's not. So I tell people the best way is we run a blood test, we look for antibodies, and when the antibodies is really high to a specific food, we're going to have you remove that food. So that's what stops the leaky gut. That's the first step, is to figure out what your food sensitivities are and stop it, so you don't have the cause of the leaky gut.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just thinking of somebody who's maybe struggling with inflammation and is really struggling with actually figuring out what is my, like, what, how should I eat, what should I eat. So you're saying, is the first step, in your opinion, to actually go and get a blood test and check out the
definitely
sensitivities? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, because it's very hard to figure out yourself, and that's the part of what you said before. I tried that myself.
Yeah.
We tried that with patients, and it's really hard. So I've done that hard, like the lab takes out that hard work for you of trying to figure out which food it is. It's literally scientific. Looking down, the lab work will tell you what antibodies, because your immune system's attacking the food protein, and then it's going to give off an antibody. But when the antibody levels are super high, then they're going to flag it, and they're going to say, you just need to remove this we do it for about 90 days to bring down the inflammation.
Okay, so it takes about 90 days to actually see the effects.
Yeah. Actually, people see the effects right away if they're really hardcore removing them, but they argue this a little bit. They think they don't know if it's 60 days or 90 days that it takes for the antibodies to just clear. So we tend to say just go 90 days hardcore to get it all out of your system.
Okay, so I would love to again come back to like what to eat and how we should eat as well, but let's also keep on with like real basics. Like, so if somebody's wondering, it's like, how would they know from the start that they have leaky gut, that they need to start maybe doing those tests and figuring it out?
So that's a great question. On my website, I have a quiz you can take, but really the questions on the quiz are going to be things like, if you stick with the digestive tract, if you have any type of symptoms in the digestive tract. So if we just stayed there, if you have reflux or indigestion, if you have pain when you eat or after you eat, if you have a lot of gas, a lot of bloating. I know women will say that we look like we're 3 months pregnant or 4 months pregnant by the end of the day. That's a huge sign of leaky gut. Okay. So things like that. If you have definitely diverticulitis, gastritis, any itises within the digestive tract, that's leaky gut. Trying to think what else. Diarrhea, constipation, back and forth. One day it's this, one day it's not that. If you don't have a natural stool every day, at least every day, that's a sign. And then if we go outside the system, joint pain, muscle pain, definitely headaches and migraines. And then if we bring it into the hormonal part, because these systems get thrown off, hormones get thrown off with leaky gut. So you can definitely have, these are things I've worked with: polycystic ovary syndrome, infertility, PMS, crazy menopause symptoms, all that type of stuff. So that system can be thrown off as well. So, and then we can't forget the whole limbic system, which is the impulsivity, paying attention, focusing, that type of thing.
Yeah, thank you for
these are symptoms. Like brain fog is one. If you're having chronic fatigue, like a lot of it could be your gut.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is very important what you're saying, that these are symptoms: brain fog, lack of energy, sort of this being unfocused and just like really not able to focus and think clearly, forgetting things. I mean, these all can be actual symptoms of your leaky gut that's disrupting the system. So, and then disrupting the hormonal balance. So I love that you're just bringing it. It's like everything in the body, all those systems are completely connected and interacting.
That's the whole thing. Think of it as a tree, like your gut and your nervous system are like the trunk going up, and then everything stems out from it. So it's going to be affected if the system in the middle, which would be your digestive and your nervous system, is altered. So, and we know this is true because what you said before, through my son, through me, and then through hundreds of patients, is when we repair the gut, when we stop that storm in the gut and we repair it, all these little symptoms go away. So that's how we know. That's how we know is we fix the gut and we improve gut health. And then they're like, hey, my brain fog's better. My fatigue's gone. I got my energy back. I feel like I'm I'm so young again. I'm so happy, you know, or the digestive issues stop. So whatever their main complaint is when they come in with me, that's what we work on. We don't work on the complaint though. We work on the gut.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly. It's not about symptoms, and it's not
Yeah.
about just, I mean, symptoms are important because they tell us things, are
Yeah.
information, but it's not about masking symptoms or cutting the symptoms. It's about going to the root, that trunk. I love that visual, the trunk that is the gut, and
Yeah.
then going from there and seeing the results. So, like in your medical practice, or your clinical practice, what are the major substances that are actually causing leaky gut that you see people testing for as sensitive?
So I would say, you mean food wise, wheat is the number one. Wheat and gluten are a huge issue. And again,
Mhm.
I believe it's because it's so altered here because we, like I said, I have patients that go out to Europe and they're fine. So that's a red flag for me. I'm like, huh. Dairy can be one, but it's not as, I guess it's 50-50 maybe with people, or, you know, it's not as prevalent. And then just odd things like we do a list of 180 foods. We have up to about 200 foods we can test. So if you're asking me which foods are more prevalent, it's not it's not the same for everyone. And like something like pineapple comes up a lot, which you wouldn't think so because as the chiropractor, we're like, oh my gosh, take pineapples, it helps with joint pain. But that one comes up a lot. And then cinnamon, which is amazing for the body, that comes up a lot. So it's kind of random. The one thing that I love about finding out what your food sensitivities are is, let's say you couldn't have wheat, right? I have to know, as your practitioner, can you do rice flour instead? Can you do almond flour instead? Where can I send you where it's still safe, right? What we used to do as nutritionists is we'd say, don't do dairy, make sure you do almond milk. But what if you react to almonds really high? That wouldn't be a good alternative. So that's what I have to do. And I love this test because I can look at you and say, all right, this is what she can eat. And we really do need to avoid these. But I don't like to like tell people don't eat. I don't like elimination diets. Like you can't have these. I look at it like what can you have? And then let's build your diet from there. So, and that's really, it's really, really cool because I feel like these are all the good things you can eat and they're going to make you healthy and you're going to see these symptoms go away. It's kind of beautiful like that.
Yeah, yeah, and you bring in science instead of more certainty into, figuring it all out. And so, yeah, beautiful. So, I mean, what I'm really hearing, it's not really necessarily just the food, is that alteration. But so if somebody, loves bread and they go with your program, they heal the gut, can they actually go back to eating it? Or is it just because that food is really so not so good here, is that we really kind of have to, live without it?
So it's a good question. It's like the number one question, right? When I do a consult, they're like, "Can I?" Or
Right?
when I do the lab analysis, like, "Can I eat these ever again?" So you can overcome them. Yes, the body can overcome them. So, but you would only know that on retesting. And I'm a little picky with retesting. I make people go the distance. Like the test, they say wait 5 months or 4 months to retest. I'll make people wait 6 or 7 because I don't want them to get the same results, right? So some people I've retested, they get the same exact results and they're like, oh, right, I got to really give these up. And some people it clears right up. Really depends on what your how your gut is working and how some people overcome them really fast and some people it takes time. So there's no like definite answer to that, but yes, you can overcome them. I just don't know how long it would take.
Okay, so it's possible. That's very helpful for all those people who love bread and pasta and just like not thinking, oh my, maybe I have to stop eating it.
Can I say something here? Because I had
Yes.
I did all my testing and wheat came up for me. It was wheat and whey. That was all I got.
Uh-huh.
And some people get 15 of them and some people get 4 and some people it's different. And I was like, I'm Italian. I was like, oh, that's pretty much like everything. So it's hard at first. You cheat, whatever, you come, you do it. And then what happens is I did a hardcore, let me just say it this way. I did a hardcore for 90 days and I did not have my problem was irritable bowel. It's basically diarrhea, random diarrhea. I'm not afraid to talk about it because it's real. And you just like have to get to the bathroom. And it's hard when you're on a bus, you're in the city, you know, where there's no bathrooms, car. And so when I took out that one thing, or those two things, wheat and whey, because that's what the lab said, and I did it hardcore, I was great. I didn't have the diarrhea. And then I'm like, maybe I'm done. Maybe I'm over it. So, you know, you start putting it back in. Um, it comes back. You get to the point where you don't even want it because you just start feeling so good that what happens over time is that it's like when I start having, like, if I had a beer, I'm regretting it 2 days later. Like, I can't really leave my house. Do you know what I'm saying? Um, right now it's summer and we're always at the beach or we're in the water, and I'm like, yeah, last thing I want to do. Like last night we went out and they ordered this amazing garlic bread and it was sitting in front of me. We're at an Italian restaurant and I was like, my friends were like, you're so strong, and I'm like, it's not that I'm strong, I just don't want diarrhea tomorrow on the beach. Like, you know, like you start not wanting to feel sick. It's kind of like what I said before. When you're sick, it becomes your new norm and you just deal with it. But then when you get better and you realize that's your new norm, you don't want to go back to being sick. So if you have to give something up, you will, because you'll start realizing, I don't really like feeling like that anymore.
Yeah, this is so important. And you also say like we don't crave those foods that much anymore. And because people
Yes.
ask like, you know, this is what I eat, this is what I love eating. How am I gonna like stop eating it now? But I think this is super important. What you said is that once we start to eliminate, once we start to, you know, really healing the gut, our body naturally will tell us that this is not good for us, that we actually need something else. And so we stop being, I think there's a lot of issues. It's more of an addiction rather than, you know, true need, that maybe somebody needs, oh, I always need to have that sugar or that wheat or that pasta, right?
Yes. Yep. And you'll be amazed that the body has an innate ability to heal itself. So I believe when the body starts feeling better, you're not going to want those things. And that's what I've seen. You get you get your life back. You're like, I don't need that.
Yeah.
The other step in the leaky gut is what you just said, is restoring it or repairing it. And that is really fascinating because that's when we go to the gut microbiome or the gut flora. And that's where all the good bacterias are. And what I love about, we have a stool test that actually tests all the flora, and it's going to see what's high and what's low. And that is my job, to find the right probiotic for somebody. So a lot of times what we tend to do with gut health is just put them on a random probiotic, but you want to be on a probiotic that is very specific to your gut flora. It's based on your imbalance. So you're going to stop the storm by like removing the foods, but then you have to jump into the gut and restore it with the right probiotic. And that's super important too. So it's just fascinating how these good bacterias that are in there that are getting kind of ruined because of the inflammation. Once the inflammation's gone, then we can get into the flora part and balance and fix that. And that really helps with hormone health. And then the other part of it is the vitamin testing. I don't know how far people got into vitamin talking. I know I've listened to some of the doctors and is excellent, but there are certain vitamins that are really important for hormone health, like vitamin B and vitamin D. Also, amino acids are super important. So we have a test that is going to test. We test all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the aminos. We actually get into the detoxers like glutathione and the omegas, and they might be off balance because of a leaky gut. So a leaky gut like kind of starts here and then causes all the other problems. They can throw off the neurotransmitters, like so many chemicals that are so crucial to the body. And that's how I told you, like when I started, I'm like, oh, there's so much here. That's how the system gets off balance, but that's how we fix it. It's just
Okay, great.
looking at all that.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing is like first we actually, you know, we eliminate those foods that are creating inflammation for us in particular, and then so we stabilize the gut, and then we start repairing it with proper probiotics and also vitamins. And then, you know, this is again science, like you're testing what is actually needed in your particular body.
Right. Right. And again, that's different between you and me. Like your probiotic might be different from mine. The vitamins that you need to take are different from mine. So it becomes very individualized. And that's why I believe it's so successful, because it's like, it is science. It's your chemistry of your body. And once you start fixing all those, the systems come together. It's
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um, we
Yeah.
also have some tests that we want to make sure you don't have toxins in the body. Toxins will definitely throw off hormones. So you
Mhm.
have like candida, bacterial infections, parasites, heavy metals. Like there's so much to like. That's why I said in the beginning, I look at it as a whole, the body as a whole system. But we start with the gut. That's where we start, and then
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
start putting it all together, and we find out what's wrong with the patient, and put a plan together that really is going to work for that specific condition that they came to see me for. And we can work in, in junction with other practitioners too, because I don't do everything. If we found that your testosterone or your estrogen was really off and it needed a medical help, we would do that too. So, but
Mm.
I really believe nutrition is super, super important. And people don't realize with the vitamins is I see in my practice when I have women that are, let's say they have polycystic ovary syndrome, or they have PMS, really bad PMS. Doesn't matter, what age they are. They might have hormonal issues after pregnancy, or definitely perimenopause and menopause. We tend to see the B vitamins low, and we tend to see like D low, certain vitamins, right? But you don't want to just take something because you heard it somewhere. You really want to just get your own vitamin levels tested and know what's low or what's high for you. So that is always seems to be in connection with thyroid. So I think thyroid health is really, really important too, which again can be coming from a leaky gut.
Okay, okay, great. So first of all, like I hear that you're probably not a fan of just taking regular vitamins from the store,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Because it's just like giving into the system just something randomly that it's not necessarily targeting what your specific needs are, and may create imbalances on the other side too.
exactly.
Um,
Well put. Yep.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit more. You mentioned thyroid. I would love to speak more on what is happening with hormones and what is that connection between gut and hormones? If we can kind of get into more specifics.
So it can be the inflammatory process, where the inflammatory process is, leaking out. We use that word loosely, and attacking the thyroid. So we look to see if there's, antibodies to the thyroid. Is the thyroid being attacked by the body? A lot of autoimmune conditions are when the body's attacking itself. So the connection can just be that inflammatory process that starts in the gut, the leaky gut, and then seeps out, which we talked about. It also could be when you're in the gut, right? You need to absorb certain amino acids to make the hormones. You need something like iodine to help with the thyroid. You also need the B vitamins. You need the D vitamins. Um, so you and we need neurotransmitters also to help that mental health, that clarity. So these all can be compromised when you have a leaky gut. So that's how I approach that, is by repairing the gut, restoring the gut. We are going to fix those imbalances.
We're back into gut, and I love it because this is something that's been coming up on this summit so much, and we're
Yeah,
looking at the gut and diet, and where does the problem with digestion and gut come from different perspectives. So it's really important that I believe, like, it's really important that we all have those different perspectives to build a picture and understand that we are all, like you're mentioning, this is very important, that we all are very unique, and
yeah.
just kind of applying those cookie cutter solutions without having specific information is not helpful. Um, Beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about the mental component, because so many people, so many women, especially, talk about this lack of energy and being the brain fog, not being able to focus. Can we just kind of give more specifics on that? How is that connecting to gut health, and what could you talk about it?
So it definitely comes down to what I just said before, is that the inflammatory process, when it starts seeping out of, leaking out, it's going to affect all the systems. So the number one way to fix the brain fog, the fatigue. And I've worked with many chronic, like severe chronic fatigue syndrome people where they can't even work. They can't get out of their bed. So they're trying to work from home or they're taking leave of absence from work. And when we do the leaky gut program I'm talking about, when we remove the food triggers, we stop the inflammation, these symptoms, these brain fogs, these fatigues, these things like that, they just go away. The body starts, and then we jump in and repair the gut so we don't have them come back, right? So we have a strong gut, strong immune system. But the neurotransmitters, which this one is really interesting, and I've come into this world because of the autism and the Asperger's that I do. There's so much to unpack here. So the main thing with that is the neurotransmitters, a lot of them are made in the gut and they depend on amino acids. So when you start looking at pathways like epinephrine, norepinephrine, serotonin, all of those, GABA, they're depending on precursors called amino acids. So they need to be, you need to have those. Like you need to have them. And if you don't, they'll start competing with each other. So again, how don't you have them is if you have a bad gut and you have a leaky gut and you have a poor diet and you have inflammation, your body's not going to make them. You might not absorb amino acids from the foods. The other part to neurotransmitters in the brain and having that energy and having that focus is the vitamins, going back to them. Again, the B vitamins, again, are super, super important. The B vitamins are actually, this is strange, but it's true. It's connected to certain bacteria in the gut. You need certain bacteria in the gut to metabolize the B and the K vitamins. So think about that. My D was low and I took vitamins and it never came up. And I was like, well, that's weird. But then when I got my stool test done, my K was like tanked. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to get the D up if I don't bring the K up. And I'm not going to get the K up if I'm not on the right probiotic. So that's the systems of what I do when I think of people, like, so if I'm thinking mental health and brain clarity and energy, I'm thinking neurotransmitters, I'm thinking vitamins and leaky gut, right? So that's how I see it, like different systems.
Great. So can you tell us about a patient or a story or somebody who actually overcame like many symptoms that they were struggling with for a long time? I know you could probably say like a million examples.
I know, I'm trying to pick one.
Curious to give it sort of like a bit of a picture how it would look like.
If somebody came in, do you want a hormone one or do you want like?
Yeah, actually, that's great. Yes.
I'll use the one because I know there was a lot of OBGYNs on and I love this one.
Yes.
So I had a patient that came to me young, polycystic ovary syndrome. And I know I mentioned that a few times, but that's a big hormonal one. So what that means is her ovaries, the OBGYN sent her to me. I work with him, we work well together, and I sent her to him, and then he sent her back to me and we worked together. And so I think he found upon ultrasound like 10 cysts on the ovaries. Her hormones were a mess and she was pre-diabetic, which means her blood sugar was getting up there, the numbers, and her thyroid was off. So she was a thyroid problem, almost a diabetic, pre-diabetic. And so he wanted to do thyroid medicine, metformin, and birth control. That was his plan. So I said, can we just do my thing? Can I work with her naturally and see what happens? He's like, sure. So she did my program, and the way it would look was we did the step one, which was doing the food sensitivity testing. I had her remove whatever came up, right? And she did it. And then I had a leaky gut diet, which was also based upon her food findings. And we did a little protocol. I like to use collagen, and I like to use, I put her on the right probiotic, couple little things, nothing big. I did do something called seed cycling with her, which is using seeds to mimic estrogen and progesterone. And we worked together for about 2 months. She went back on the 3rd month. 1 cyst was left, and glucose was normal, thyroid was normal. And he was like, I can't even believe this. This is amazing. And she lost weight because obviously she was not being able to lose weight. She was gaining weight due to the systems. We also looked at the vitamins and we balanced out what she was low in. And I put it in her diet. I tend to try to say, well, if you're low in Bs, let's eat these foods that are high in Bs. So I don't remember exactly like if I prescribed a supplement for her, but I know we fixed the vitamins. And it worked out beautifully. And she went off, you know, she was young. She was 26 years old. Like that could have been a disaster for the rest of her life, right? Her new normal would have been three medications at 26 and maybe not be able to get pregnant, right?
Yeah.
So, and it was just, and he was like, this is amazing, this is awesome, you know. And so she's still with him today, and she works with me, and it's beautiful,
Wow.
right?
Yes,
So
and I
yeah,
think it is so hopeful because yes, so many women do struggle with PCOS, you know, and a lot of different gynecological conditions, and you know, this offers a different solution. It's not about taking hormonal replacement. It's not about taking medication. It's about going into that trunk, right? Into that
yeah,
really root cause of what's happening. So I really want to appreciate that. It's really it's just a lot of hope and a lot of new perspective for, I believe, like a lot of women who may be struggling right now. So
yeah,
I hope they're listening. Um, yay. So
yeah. Yeah, no, it's exciting. I know.
yeah, so Dr. Lisa, you have a free gift to offer our audience to connect with you. Can you tell us more about
Yes,
it?
I do. I have it's a PDF, you know, a mini book. It's a very small, I wouldn't call it an ebook, but what it is it's about the gut brain connection. And also, when we talk about the gut brain connection, it works with the gut body connection. So when you
Mhm.
go in there, you sign up, and it's going to walk you through some of the steps you can do right now, you know, um, at home to start the healing of the gut. So, or the repair. I hate to use the word healing because it's a tricky. Well, am I really allowed to use it? So we're supposed to say repairing the gut. So it's steps that you can do right now, and with your children or within your own home to, you know, implement a beginning of repairing and restoring a leaky gut.
Beautiful. Okay, well, I encourage everybody to get it because it is a Dr. Lisa's gift to you. Wow. So this is, I really want to appreciate it so much, your perspective, what you bring into the table. And I love talking about, you know, really understanding a bit more about how leaky gut actually affects the hormones. And this whole bigger perspective of that hormonal health is not about just the hormonal levels or, you know, what is happening in the hormonal system. It is about the entire body and how all of it interacts together. So I love that people get this message, and I think this is something that really can revolutionize our understanding of health as long as we really follow that and implement it and you know, test what is actually happening with your body and be specific, because that is, you know, this is a huge part, not just following diets from Instagram, which, you know, is unfortunately
I,
happening.
I know
Good.
that's it's hard. And then another thing I can add is that when you said that, people come to me and it's like, well, I love paleo diet, or I love keto, or I, you know, I have to be vegan, or I have to do this. And I'm not trying to change someone's diet, but I want to be like, all right, well, let's look at what you're eating and what does your body attack? Let's remove it. And what is really processed and unhealthy, that's not good too, right? That creates that. I always tell people disease loves inflammation. So if you have
Yes.
an inflamed body, you're going to be the perfect reservoir for disease, right? So disease loves acidic, an inflammation. It loves sugar, it loves acidity, and it loves inflammation, and it loves a deoxygenated body. So like you might, I don't necessarily, someone comes to me and has to get off their vegetarian diet. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying let's look at what you're eating and find out which food your body's attacking, remove those. And I'm also going to look if you're eating some junky stuff, you know, like if
Yes.
you like soda, we're going to have a conversation about soda. So,
Yes, Diet
um,
Coke is vegetarian, by the way. So, you know, it's
yeah,
not about
right.
label.
So we're still going to have a conversation about bad foods, but it's really about also if you eat. I have girls that come to me; they're super healthy. A lot of a lot of 25-year-olds come to me and eat really healthy and are really sick. So
Mhm.
they're like, do I have to give up the vegetarian lifestyle? I'm like, no. We just have to look at what amongst the vegetables that you're eating is your body attacking, and that's where we
Yes.
start.
Beautiful.
So
Thank you so much. That is very
it's
important.
a pleasure to be on. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lisa. Thank you, everybody. Wow, we could talk forever. I always feel like that with our interviews that, oh, it's 40 minutes, but honestly, we could talk for hours because it's just digging deep into that information. But I know you can connect, everybody who's watching, you can connect with Dr. Lisa, reach out to her if you want to delve deeper into testing for the food sensitivities and repairing your gut, and definitely get her free gift. And wow, so that was a true pleasure to learn from you, Dr. Lisa, today. And I know that everybody benefited tremendously. So thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Lisa. Thank you, everybody, for watching and participating with the show. Please tell us what your questions were, if there's still more things that you want to explore and understand, and what you may be struggling with. And if you need extra help, we're here for you. So thank you again, and we'll be seeing you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.